Welcome to today's program, one of many offered by your UC Alumni Association. Before we begin, it's important for me to say thank you for joining us. By actively participating in our offerings and experiences, you are harnessing the power of your alumni network. There are Bearcats all over the world, more than 315,000 alumni in 127 countries, which makes virtual programs like this so rewarding. These challenging times do come with a silver lining. We are more connected than ever before, creating boundless opportunities. The University of Cincinnati and each of you is stronger and better positioned because of our lifelong connections through our alma mater. We love providing opportunities like this one, where alumni can learn, network, and give back. So settle in and enjoy today's program. And if you like what you hear today, please share it on social media using the hashtag #ThyLoyalChildren. Thanks again for joining us. Go Bearcats!
Stanley, do you just want to take it away?
I will take it away.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces out there. I'm seeing Rob and Lana for one. The first thing that a conductor learns or that a teacher learns is it's always the technology that will mess you up. In your classroom, in your rehearsal hall, it's always that bit of technology of which you need to be aware and beware. So thanks so much for logging on this afternoon. Fall has come to Cincinnati. It's a little nippy today, but the sun is out and it's getting a little warmer. Let me also say, just as a housekeeping matter, it's noon on the Eastern Seaboard. So if you're having lunch, please feel free to go right ahead and have lunch while we're talking. Nobody's going to be offended, and you can use your time as effectively as you would like. So please continue if you'd like to. We began the new academic year at CCM 5 weeks ago. We are almost a third of the way through fall semester, which I think just amazes all of us. And I have to say, we are off to a really great start, despite the pandemic and everything with which we're dealing. The University of Cincinnati set yet another enrollment record this fall with almost 47,000 students. 47,000 students at UC. CCM's enrollment is similarly strong. We are at just over 1,400. Technically, we were at 1,401 students at CCM. If you keep track of these things, we split roughly between 800 undergraduates and 600 graduate students. So 1,400 in all, which is right where we want to be. Without question, COVID-19 did not dampen enthusiasm for CCM or for the University of Cincinnati, and we're incredibly grateful for that. It's true in your life as well as in ours at CCM. At CCM, we are doing things differently this year in order to protect the health and safety of our faculty and our staff and our students. This year, we are, for the first time in CCM's 152-year history, offering a carefully balanced blend of online, face-to-face, and hybrid instruction. So if you look at our traditional, what I would call academic courses, the history of, the theory of, the philosophy of, all of those courses are being offered online. That accounts for about 75% of our curriculum. We are still offering face-to-face, but at a social distance, all of our ensembles. So Philharmonia, Wind Symphony, Chamber Choir are all meeting, but they are meeting socially distanced, and they are using all kinds of wonderful protective measures, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. And when it comes to studio lessons, the things that were so much a part of our lives as alumni, that weekly lesson with our major teacher, we left studio lessons to the discretion of the faculty member and the student. And in most cases, faculty members are doing some online instruction and some face-to-face instruction. For instance, a number of our voice faculty are offering 2 or 3 online lessons, one each week. And then in the 4th week, they are offering an in-person lesson, but not in a studio in one of our recital halls. So in Watson Recital Hall or in Warner Recital Hall. By doing that, we can create a greater distance. The student can be on stage. If there needs to be an accompanist, the accompanist can be on the other side of the stage, and the faculty member can be in the hall. It creates greater distance, a lot more protection for everybody involved. But we've left those decisions to the faculty member, to the student. They're the ones who can best decide how to handle those lessons. One of the things that we're doing with all of this is we've pledged to ourselves that we are not adjusting to what people might call the new normal of life with COVID. We are determined at CCM to define the new excellent for major American conservatories. And I have been encouraged by a couple of things. I've been encouraged first by the ingenuity and the creativity of our incredible faculty. We've all gotten accustomed to teleconferences like we're having now. Some of us have embraced telemedicine, visiting with doctors and physicians assistants and nurses online and dealing with medical issues online. At CCM, we have embraced telemusic and teleart. I mean, who knew that you could actually teach marimba online? Well, Rusty Burge knew, and he figured out how to do it. So we are offering all kinds of things due to the ingenuity and creativity of our faculty, and that has been incredibly rewarding for us. So I've been really impressed by our faculty. I have also been impressed by the discipline and willingness of our students. We're asking students to wear masks. We're asking students to socially distance. And the thing that I've gotten as I've gone in and out of rehearsals and some classes and talked with students both online and face to face is that they are glad to be back. They're hungry to be making art again in the company of their peers. And they want to make sure that they continue to make art at CCM with all of their peers. We are facing two substantial challenges at CCM this semester, and the first one is around performances. As artists, we thrive on human connection. We all draw energy and emotion from our audiences. There's something special about being in the room when other people are singing or playing with you. There's something special about being in the room when an actor takes the stage and delivers that really insightful monologue in a stirring way. There's something special about being in the room when dancers seem to fly across the stage, defying gravity and physics, and just enchanting all of us. Our students will still be on stage this year. They are still making music and making theater and dancing. They will still be on stage, but there will be fewer of them on stage at one time, and there will be no live audiences at CCM. CCM's Philharmonia Orchestra, for example, normally numbers about 90 players. This year we have two Philharmonia orchestras, each consisting of 45 players. Well, why 45? Two reasons. One, 45 is the maximum number of musicians that we can put on the stage and keep them socially distanced. So if you look at Philharmonia on stage, the chairs are all 6 to 10 feet apart. The wind and brass players have plexiglass walls around them to protect them and to protect other people. 45 is the maximum number of people that we can put on the stage and keep them distanced. Every player has his own stand. There's no more stand partners. There's no more sitting shoulder to shoulder with somebody and sharing a score, sharing a musical part. You have your own stand, you have your own part. So 45 is the maximum that we can put on the stage in Corbett Auditorium. 45 also keeps us under the University of Cincinnati's mandate. The university has asked us not to have any public gatherings of more than 50 people in the room, and a class or a rehearsal counts as a public gathering. So we are careful to limit the number of participants in any space to not more than 50. It's for everybody's health and safety. Our students are working with that, our faculty are working with that, and they're doing an incredible job. So we will perform this year. As usual, performance is a part of who we are. It's a part of what we do. We are recording a number of those performances, high quality audio and video, and we will broadcast them later this semester. We'll broadcast them to you as our alumni. We'll broadcast them to parents. We'll broadcast them to prospective students. We'll broadcast them to our donors who are still providing really important financial support for CCM. We'll broadcast them through a variety of channels, and we'll get word out to you in advance so that you know when they're going to be available. Some of them will be available on YouTube Premium. Some of them will be available through our website. We're hoping that some of them will be available in Cincinnati through WCET, public access television. We see this as an incredible opportunity to advance CCM's reputation as a nationally ranked and internationally renowned conservatory. We're investing heavily in CCM Digital, and it's not just about reputation, and it's not just about about filming our students. It is about staying in touch with our alumni. It is about staying in touch with prospective students. You may know that there are no in-person college fairs this year. Typically at this time of year, our admission staff is on the road. They're at high schools across the country, talking with students, talking with music teachers. A lot of those students are attending class online. A lot of those teachers are teaching from their homes. And so there are no in-person college fairs across the country. Everything is gone digital. Everything is happening in the virtual world. So our ability to represent the professionalism and the excellence of CCM in a virtual space is absolutely critical. And we're investing heavily in that. Beyond musical performance, the second challenge that we're facing at CCM this fall is the challenge to make CCM a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive place to teach and learn. We've heard very loudly and very clearly from a number of our alumni that we have a lot of work to do in that regard. So I want you to know that we're taking 3 important steps in order to meet that challenge. First, we are working to further diversify CCM's faculty and staff. Second, we're working to further diversify CCM's student population. And third, we're working to change CCM's culture and the daily lived experience of the people who make up our community. Our efforts to further diversify the faculty and staff reside primarily in the dean's office. That's my responsibility, working with faculty search committees and staff search committees. We see every search as an enormously important opportunity to diversify our community. Our efforts to further diversify CCM's student population are being championed by our admissions office. Almost 3 years ago now, we established a national network of performing arts high schools as a way to draw students from across the country from a variety of very diverse high schools with highly talented students. Those efforts are already paying off for us. They're supported by our admissions team. They're supported by our faculty, and we are working very closely with UC admissions, not CCM admissions, but University of Cincinnati admissions. And some of our efforts, again, are already paying off. If you look at this year's incoming acting class, about half the students are from underrepresented minorities. It's the first time that's ever happened in the history of our acting program. If you look at this year's CCM musical theater incoming class, 40% of those students are from underrepresented minorities. That's a significant shift for us, and we'll continue to work on that. The work of changing CCM's culture is being led by our faculty, because when we're talking about CCM culture, in large part, we're talking about the repertoire that we ask our students to perform, the text that we ask our students to read, the authors that we put in front of them, the composers that we put in front of them. It's about the guest artists that we invite to our campus. It's about the models that we hold up for our students and say, these are the things to which you aspire. And our faculty have taken this very, very seriously. We have a listening session with current CCM students and faculty scheduled for tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Again, it will be like this, a virtual conversation. But we want to hear directly from students. There will be opportunities if you wish to participate. There will be opportunities for CCM alumni to weigh in and to say, here was my experience when I was at CCM. And also to say, here are lessons that I've learned in other institutions of which I'm a part. So I want you to know that we are taking those things seriously. Our goal with all of these efforts is to have in hand a series of 4 or 5 concrete steps that we can take to make CCM a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive place beginning with spring semester 2021. This is not an issue that we want to say, well, we're going to meet for about a year and then we'll think about it and then we'll talk about it. It's a time for us to act, and we are not waiting in order to do that. I will say in closing that we are doing all of this in one of the worst financial climates that you can possibly imagine. As a result of COVID-19, the University of Cincinnati cut all college budgets, including CCM's. Our budget was cut more than $1 million. We had to implement those cuts at the beginning of the fiscal year, and the results have been hurtful to CCM, but we're moving forward. And we're moving forward understanding that we have to invest in CCM Digital, and we have to invest in making CCM a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive place. That means, among other things, that we have to do a better job of providing scholarships for students that we really want to bring to CCM, and that we have to provide endowed chairs and other incentives to bring to CCM the faculty that we want to make CCM the place of tomorrow. So in closing, if you choose to make a gift to CCM this year, and I hope you will, if you choose to make a gift, I can promise you that it's going to go into those two efforts. Monies first and foremost go into student scholarships, because that's an enormous need for us. I have heard this year for the first time from students who said, I want to come back to complete my degree at CCM, but both my parents lost their jobs due to COVID-19, and I need help. We've heard those stories for the first time, and we'll continue to hear those stories in the year ahead. We're also understanding that we're in fierce competition with our competitors. We are competing with Michigan and Indiana and Eastman and Juilliard and Oberlin for the best students and for the best faculty. We want them to be at CCM so that the next generation of students can have the kind of experience that you had and that I had during our days at CCM. Thank you so much for supporting CCM. I, like you, am a proud alumnus who says often that everything that I have been able to do in my career, I can trace to roots at CCM. It was either an experience that I had at CCM, a relationship that I formed at CCM, or something that I learned while at CCM that made it all possible. So I'm going to close because I see his face on my screen. I'm going to thank Paul Hildner. Paul Hildner was the director of admissions when I was admitted to CCM, and Paul Hildner reminds me frequently, and he should, that Paul Hildner was the one who signed my letter of admission to CCM. So Paul, thank you for making that possible for me, and thank you all for joining today's conversation. Happy to talk about anything that you like, to answer any questions that you have, and to hear any comments or statements that you want to make. Jamie, I'll turn it back to you.
Super. Hello. Yes. Well, maybe while you guys are thinking, I mean, if you want to pop on the screen and say something, please feel free to do so. I've got a couple questions just that we've kind of heard consistently as an office and as a college that we can kind of start with. And one of them, I'll start with a light one, Stanley. Maybe not so light. I don't know. We'll see. Just talking about the student experience. I mean, it really is amazing to think about the past 8 months. And in that first month, things changed like that. So students are graduating into a very different climate. Has curriculum shifted at all? How are faculty preparing students to enter like today's creative economy?
So a couple of things, Jamie. Thank you for the question. One of the things that I love about CCM and that I've loved about us historically is that we keep very close tabs on the worlds into which our students will go. So for students who are going into higher education, we need to understand what forces are changing higher education. For students who are looking at jobs on Broadway, we need to understand what demands are being made of them. So a lot of what we're doing is being driven by market forces and by the kind of world in which they'll live. One of the things that we've heard repeatedly and that we're trying to address is that students' ability to occupy online space and to have an effective social media presence is wildly important. One of our musical theater alums said to me in a conversation about 18 months ago, I was asking, so, what's changed in the Broadway world? And she said, two things have really changed. The first is there is much greater emphasis now on diverse casting. They want Broadway shows to look like America and to look like the diversity of our communities. So they really want a breadth of artistry on the stage. And she said, but the other thing is, when you come to the end of an audition, particularly if you've done well, the producer, the director, whoever's in the audition will say, tell me about your social media presence. How many followers do you have on Instagram, on all these social media platforms? And she said, the reality now is you're expected to bring to the production your own audience, your own social media following. And she said, the reality is if you have two applicants who are equally qualified, both could sing the role, both, have wonderful experience, the nod is going to go to the person with the greatest social media presence because they can help the show succeed. So one of the things that is really changing for us is helping students both to create and to manage effective social media presences. I see Michael with his hand.
Michael, I love it. Yes.
Go, Michael.
Yes, I've unmuted myself. Yeah, so I'm living in England. I have been for 25 years. Hi, Paul. Nice to see you. And Paul Hillner was there when I was there and probably signed I think you probably were the first person to hear me sing for CCM as well. And I really loved CCM. It was a great experience for me. And it's great to see people from CCM performing on the world stages. I saw Nicole Heaston sing in Norway when I was teaching at the Opera House there. I've seen Freddie Ballantyne at the English National Opera, and Joel Harvey at Glyndebourne. And so it's wonderful to see all of those people performing. Philip Horst at the English National Opera. So it's nice to see people from Cincinnati around the world. And it was a great experience for me. CCM really supported me. And I'm now working at the Royal Northern College of Music, teaching singing there. And that's where Malcolm Fraser, who was the head of opera at CCM, taught. And he also started the Buxton Festival. So, and I saw that Daniel Weeks was doing something at the Royal Northern. And I tried to contact him, but we haven't made contact yet. But it'd be great to make some contact with him. I'm also on the Board of Governors at the Royal Northern and work for the National Opera Studio in London. So it would be great to make some connections with CCM and see if there's some way we can, make some things happen. I occasionally come back to CCM, to Cincinnati to see Tibby Plyer. And one of the things I wanted to say, because I saw that you and the president sent out this letter about diversity at the college and your commitment to it. And in a way, I was a little bit surprised, happy about it, and shocked, because I think that during the time that I was there, people like Paul and the dean and Karen Fallberg were doing great things to change the diversity at CCM. But after that period, I didn't see very much happen. In fact, I think we've gone in retrograde. Okay. And it's one of the reasons that I don't feel like much like coming back to CCM, because I feel like it's been kind of a letdown, because I was actually in charge of ethnic diversity during that time, and I worked with Paul and with Hal, and I think we worked very hard. But in the end, there was no money, and there's always no money when it comes down to doing these things. And one of the suggestions I made was to actually go to schools where you might find students, because we have a network of schools. Every school has a network of universities, colleges, high schools that they go to make those connections. And I don't think CCM really ever made those connections. And if you look at a school like Indiana or Michigan, I went to the African American Art Song Alliance in California with all of these great singers and people who sung at the Met, who sung up all over the world, there just to do this, to learn about African American art song. And I saw all of these great singers, and every single one of them was from Michigan. And so many of them came through Michigan because they had Shirley Verrett there, George Shirley, Willis Patterson, all of those people were recruiting. And, you know, we had one Black faculty member on the voice faculty, and now we have none. And, you know, that is about, you know, I don't know how widely CCM actually recruits, but, you know, you have to look at it and say, is this cliquishness, or are we really looking broadly to find voice faculty? And we have the same issue in this country. So I think there's, you know, when I think about the work that I did 25 years ago at CCM, and now when I look at CCM, I think, you know, I went to a production, musical theater production. I think it was at what's Notre Dame one? The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I saw the casting and I thought, it's so stereotypical, the casting. You know, certainly we're beyond this. So I'm glad to hear that things are changing in that direction. Because I'm very proud of CCM and very proud of what I got from it, because I think it was a great education in many ways. But I also listened to your suggestion about the what we learn, because I asked one of my 20th century history professors when we were starting the class, oh, are we going to learn about some women composers and some African American and some ethnic African American composers? And he said to me, well, we're mainly concerned about legit music, not jazz and that sort of thing. That was the answer from a man with a doctorate who was supposed to be in charge of my class. And I was appalled. I didn't know that much then, but I know now that that shouldn't have been his answer. And I think that if CCM can change those things and look a bit more complex like the other conservatoires that I see around the country, then I would be pleased to be connected with it again in a way, because I think it would be then a great conservatory, because it's actually dealing with the world as it is and not just a sort of small part of the world. So that's what
Michael, thank you. Thank you. That's incredibly well said and helpful, and I thank you. Yeah, I think we're particularly proud of the network of arts high schools that we've created across the country. That really does span everything from Las Vegas to Miami to New, you know, and back across. But it is something that we take quite seriously. And to the point that you made earlier, I will make sure that we connect you with Dan Weeks. I see Dan frequently, and we'll make sure that he gets in touch with you. So thank you. It's wonderful to hear from you. Remind me which years you were at CCM, Michael.
I was there from 89 to 91 getting my master's, and then I was there working on my doctorate, but I didn't finish. I left to start my career in England. I got a Presser scholarship to come and study as a countertenor in England, and came back a few years on the trot and then stayed.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm delighted by your success, and thank you again for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a comment in the chat. Can you tell us how the pandemic has affected international students being able to return to CCM?
Sorry, COVID had quite an impact on us. Most of our international students who were still in the United States came back to CCM, but we did have about 50 students this year who deferred, and most of them were international students who said either I can't get a visa or I can't get a flight. Our promise to them was, you'll pardon the rather corny catchphrase, but the catchphrase was, start where you are and come when you can. So we made it possible for them to begin coursework with us online and to go ahead wherever they happen to be in the world and to start with us online. About half of them are intending to come and join us in January. It depends upon, frankly, it depends upon COVID. It depends upon world politics as to whether the United States will be in a position of authorizing visas and granting visas to people coming back into the country. But about half of them intend to come back, and the other half said, I'm going to sit out an entire year. I'll join you beginning in the fall of 21. So it did have a significant impact on us. And we hope those students will still find their way to CCM.
Can you say we had a comment about teaching lessons online? What percentage of lessons are being taught online?
About 50% of our lessons are being taught online. I actually study at CCM. I study through the prep division, and all of my lessons are online. And I have to say, it's not the same as being in the room. You know, there's some things that are more difficult. If my teacher could actually see what I'm doing, it's like, oh, you know, now I just do this. But it works, and it works. It works, I think, reasonably well. You know, I'm going to look to my friend Robin Lana for a minute because you know Robin does children's choirs online and related things. So Robin, you might want to do these too. But one of the positives that we found from online is for a lot of students, they end up taking more individual responsibility for their own learning because they are only online. They have only themselves upon which to rely. So Robin, you want to say anything about what it's like to do children's choirs and whatnot? I mean, you know, Robin has a wonderful organization that is affiliated with CCM.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a big challenge, especially with my students being all over Greater Cincinnati area, and so many are online during the school day. So what I have to offer in the evening has to be something that draws them to being online again, and it's rewarding, but it's fun, it's connecting. So a lot of our time online in the choir setting is exactly that, connecting and giving them an outlet to be together. And then I'm using external programs like Flipgrid or Google Drive for submissions, where I can do some one-on-one coaching with them, or through Zoom or FaceTime. And they're getting a lot more one-on-one attention. As you know, as Stanley mentioned, that there are some interesting benefits to this. And teaching youth independence as young musicians, I think when we are back together, we're going to reap the rewards of that, but I really can't wait till we do that. We're looking at outdoor spaces and some indoor spaces where it will be half of a choir at a time, in DVAC 300 in November. And then actually on Thursday night this week, we'll be in my driveway with 3 different groups, all social distancing and with masks. But I have one side of a house, my flat driveway, and another house. And so I'm thinking that's going to be enough residents, and I'll have power and Wi-Fi to get the other kids in. So we're all trying to think creatively and keep our students engaged at all different levels at CCM.
I will add, I'll just add one thing to that. Paul Hillner may be horrified by this idea. But this year, for the first time, all CCM auditions will be virtual auditions. There will be no live on-campus auditions. And we've done that for 2 reasons. The first is it's the right thing to do to protect the health of our students, our prospective students, our faculty, and our staff. You know, saying to students from all over the world, you must come to Cincinnati in late January, early February in order to audition is not good for anybody's health. And the second, to go back to Michael's point, it's an equity issue for us. If you have to have the resources to fly to Cincinnati, to stay in a hotel, to do the audition, and to be with us for a couple of days, we are probably excluding a lot of people who simply don't have the resources, but otherwise would do very, very well at Cincinnati, at CCM. So we are doing that. I see Diane just sent in a note. We are doing with conducting auditions. They will be virtual auditions, but they will be live streamed. So it will be an actual real-time audition, but it's happening via the internet. But they will not come. You still have to conduct an orchestra or a chorus or a wind ensemble, whatever it happens to be. But we'll watch it in real time, and the conductors who are viewing the live stream will be able to talk with you and say, please go back to measure 12 and ask the ensemble to do X or Y. So I mean, to Robin's point, I think everybody's being amazingly creative about this. And working. I think Michael put in a question about about accompaniment. We are actually using our accompanists. We're doing some taped accompaniments that we will provide for you, so you don't have to secure an accompanist, but we'll provide the recording for you, and you can use it to match up and sing your own audition for us. Michael, we actually did the Corbett competition, the Corbett opera competition last year was done that way. We had our pianist record the accompaniment. We sent it to the competitors. They recorded over it and sent it back, and the panel of judges judged from the submitted recordings. So again, not ideal, but people are being very creative and very adaptive in saying, we can find ways to make this work. It won't be like this forever, but we can make it work while it is.
So that was a bit about auditions in the, early winter or late winter, early spring. Do you have any notion of what the spring is going to look like? I know you're hearing that a lot.
Well, we have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Plan A, and this is the guidance from the university, is that we should anticipate a spring semester that mirrors the fall. So if you remember those three, we have online instruction, face-to-face instruction, and hybrid instruction. We will probably continue to do that in the spring. So that's plan A. Plan B is, well, COVID is still around, but we're managing better, and the university is not a hotbed of COVID, and we can begin to invite audiences back to CCM, that we can invite people in to hear performances and keep them socially distanced. And plan C is, there is some miraculous inoculation against COVID-19, and it dissipates all over the country, and we feel safe in some sort of fuller return to life the way it was last year. So we are preparing for all of those, but in that ranked order. We're expecting to stay just like we are in the virtual world. We could loosen things a little bit, and we could go so far as to go back, but that seems very, very unlikely for us.
Well, in the last couple of minutes that we have, I think we talked a lot about some of the positive things that hopefully are going to come out of this for CCM. Do you see any more? I mean, with just the climate of the world right now, like some long-term positive effects that this is going to have on CCM?
One of the things that I've been impressed by, and we didn't set out to do it this way, but we took two approaches this summer. The first was, because we are a conservatory embedded in an R1 research university, the question of, well, what's going to keep people safe? We said, you know what? There are scientists right on the other side of campus who are epidemiologists, and they look at these things. So why don't we pair CCM faculty with scientists and dig into the science? And one of the things that the scientists said to us is HEPA filters, HEPA, HEPA filters make an enormous difference in removing particulate matter from the air, from removing COVID particles from the air. They will help keep people safe. So we distributed more than 400 HEPA filters. They're about the size of a small suitcase. We distributed more than 400 across the campus. We also have hand sanitizers and distancing language, and we reduced the density in classrooms. We did a lot of things. And when our faculty came back, they said, you know what? When we talk with our colleagues in other schools, Indiana, Michigan, Eastman, et cetera, we're doing a lot more. We're doing more, and we're being more aggressive about keeping people safe. We're really proud of that at CCM. And the other thing that our faculty have said to us coming out of this is, if you look at our commitment to performance, even in spite of pandemic, a lot of our competitors went another way and said, we're not going to do that. We're just not going to have performances at all. Not before audiences, or just, we're not doing that. We'll focus on other things. And I'm not second guessing anybody's choices. I'm sure other places made their decisions for wholly good reasons, as we did. But I think that when we come through all of this, we can say that we were true to our roots as CCM, that we were true to our roots as a conservatory within an R1 university. We look to science to inform our decisions. And I think we can also look and say very proudly, we upheld our commitment to excellence, our commitment to performance, and our commitment to relationships between faculty and students, even in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. And I think that that's something that will be a mark of distinction for CCM. And I'm very glad that we took the route that we took.
That's great, Stanley. Before we wrap up, Jonathan, do you want to talk a little bit further about your comment in the chat?
I mean, the one about historically black schools?
Oh, I didn't see
Or
that
the other
one.
one? Yeah, that one I sent directly to Dean Romenstein.
Oh,
good. Thank you,
gotcha.
John. I haven't been following the chat, but
Yeah, I was just going to point out, I'm in the Baltimore, Washington area.
yes.
And I've become aware through the efforts of the head of the vocal program at Howard, which is one of the two historically black colleges and universities in our region, to revive their vocal program. This is basically based on what Mr. Harper was saying from England. The Howard vocal program was originally Todd Duncan's program. He was the original Porgy in Porgy and Bess, 1935. People,
Right.
not just African Americans, used to flock to Washington to study with him. And then that
Right.
program went into hiatus. So Leanna's rebuilding it, building opera from scratch. Morgan State up in Baltimore has a very famous choral program. These are universities that don't really have graduate programs. And they turn out wonderful African American musicians, particularly singers. And it strikes me that this is one link that CCM might consider using, the historically black schools that don't have graduate programs. We had one graduate of a historically black college in my class in the composition department, and he ended up doing his doctorate at CCM. He is wonderful, and he may be somebody you want to talk to. That's Brian Neighbors, who is a graduate of Samford University in Alabama and then master's in DMA from CCM. And he's very successful. And more power to him. But he's the only one I knew who had come from a historically black college. And it strikes me that these people are, an untapped resource.
Jonathan, thank you. That's wonderful, wonderful information. I will make sure that I talk with our admissions team this afternoon and relay that information to them. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Oh,
I just
Michael.
wanted to say that there are loads of other CCM alumni all around. Phyllis Lewis Hale at Jackson State and her husband there. They're all around the country. So it might be good to tap into some of those people who are already there who went to CCM. I bet they'd be delighted to be contacted by CCM and asked for help.
Michael, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful. Well, if there are no other thoughts, comments, questions, thank you all so much for tuning in today. As always, please reach out if you need anything on behalf of CCM. I'd love to talk further about everyone's paths post-graduation. And yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks, Stanley.
Thank you all for a really enjoyable conversation. I hope I'll get to talk with you again soon, and I hope life will change so that we can get you back to CCM and on the ground at CCM Village sometime soon. Thank you all very much. Bye.
Bye, everyone.